different times, and we talk about marriage stuff and getting ready for marriage and things to make it successful. We have some great tools that we use. The other strand we do is more on the support side, because there are a lot of people struggling in their marriages. And you get two people that really want to have a great marriage, and it's not always working out, and they just want to have like a coach come by. And while we're not counselors, we don't have that skill set, we just come by and we help them out and support. And again, we meet usually about 8 times, and it's been a delightful experience to help that way.
Yeah. I'm just thinking back for a minute when we had kids this age, we were moving to Germany to be missionaries for 4 years, and our oldest daughter was 6 months old when we moved over, and then we had another daughter overseas. And so I just remember the years when you guys, the ages of your children, we were gone from family and things that we knew. And so my groups like this, we did have groups like this, not this big, of course. We served at Black Forest Academy. And this is such a breath of fresh air. It's such a crucial time that you guys have to have fellowship and learn from one another and find someone that's a few years down the road from you in raising your kids. And anyway, it just brings back good memories. It's great to be here. You have the most important job of all is being a parent, and so don't forget that. Not the most important relationship, I mean that's marriage, but your most important job. So as we've done this mentoring, we've used a lot of great tools, a lot of good books, devotionals, podcasts, and things. So as teachers, we just used to glean. You know, when you found something from another teacher that thought, God, that really sounds great, I want to use that in my classroom. I was just a great gleaner of taking things that worked and things that looked that would fit my needs. So that's what we've done on our talk today. We love gleaning. We've tried to put together some of the main things that we have found have changed, really helped a lot of marriages. And I apologize in advance if some of this is not going to be new to you. Hopefully you're going to find a few new seeds of things that you can take home and share with your husband and make a difference. So.
All right, one of the areas that we'll glean from, of course, is the scriptures, and seeing a little bit about what the scriptures have to say. This first one is really, I think, at the heartbeat, because one of the things I want in my own marriage and with people we work with is not just have a marriage that survives, but what does it mean to really thrive? What does it mean to go a lifetime? And I kind of like the 2 pictures we have is the one we got married, and then 40 years later, we're still at it and still growing, and to encourage you that all that you go through, it's worth it, and it's worth investing in what it takes.
We, as both teachers, we used to have, student teachers that would come into our classrooms, and they would spend a whole year just learning the ropes of being a teacher, but that was just a job and a vocation, and this is your relationship. This is your most meaningful relationship of your life, and some people don't put any time of preparation into it or time to keep it going, and so that's one of the reasons we think it's so important, is just to always be refreshing and learning. Yeah.
So this scripture says, a man leaves his father and mother and is joined to his wife, and the two are united into one. And that whole thing about marriage that I like, I think it's a divine process. Something happens when 2 people get married. There's oneness. And what does that look like? What does it mean to have a oneness experience, or to really be what we call soulmates?
Mm-hmm. I'm going to read just a quote here. No one can play as significant a role in encouraging your partner as you can. No one can meet his needs better than you. But to be effective, you need to study your partner by paying careful attention to his needs, desires, and aspirations. So we've kind of broken our talk into 3 different areas. The first is study your mate, and then we'll have a little bit on intimacy, not physical intimacy, a little on physical intimacy, but just being known by your partner, and then communication and conflict. So this first one is study your mate.
I like this one because I think that's the first thing you realize, even in the video that was shown. You get married with one eye, sort of the hallmark idea, and then you get together and you realize how different you are. So one of the ways that we learned, obviously, is were gender differences and how different that was. And I had to learn what it was like to be close friends at this level with a woman, and she had to do it with a man. Understand the way we're wired differently as men and women.
Generally, and a lot of these, remember, are generalizations, because a lot of times things that they'll say, the woman should feel this way and the man should feel this way, we're flip-flopped. So we're kind of just speaking in general terms. But usually women share feelings more and men love to solve problems. Women's needs are to be cherished and loved.
And men often like to be cheered and respected. Mm-hmm. And we have these sort of different core needs, and this is why it's nice to study your mate, see what they're really like, and how to make it work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One of the books that we've used is called Love and Respect, and it talks a lot about seeing the world through blue or pink sunglasses, and listening, having hearing aids that are blue or pink hearing aids, and we'll kind of be talking about that later. So, and they're just different. Neither one is right or wrong. They're just different. That's one of my favorite lines from that book. Neither one is right or wrong. They're just different. So, love languages. We're going to be hitting this in a few more slides, but this was one of the big eye-opening things for us. And hopefully, you know, we didn't look back over the years on what some of your topics had been, but hopefully you've had some teachings on the 5 love languages, because they're so important with your spouse and your kids. So,
another way we're wired differently is Racky is a multitasker. And I think this is common with women. I don't know how they do it. They can do many things at once. I can't. And so it's learning to appreciate those differences. And one of the ways I joke is, for example, coming here. It's time to go. Well, I get my stuff, put my keys in my pocket, and I'm in the car. Racky starts scanning. You know, there's a rule that the counter has to be cleared off before you go, and then this has to be straightened. Oh, well, the flower's watered. You better straighten the pillow. And then even in the garage, I see her doing this.
okay,
and I go, stop it. Get in the car. So we're wired differently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm a firstborn, enough said. He's the lastborn. There you go.
Yes, I do like to be pampered. Okay, another way that we're very different is she's extremely neat, and I'm not so much. Mm-hmm. And you can see it in our closet. To me, a closet is where clothes go. That's all I need. I put the clothes in there. But she has them color-coded.
Oh, good.
Short
okay.
sleeves, long sleeves.
Okay.
And I didn't know you were supposed to evenly space the
Oh,
hangers.
I'm not like that. Okay, anyway.
We're different.
But our differences, you know, this is, you know, you probably have in your marriage talks before, you know, things like just squeezing toothpaste. And even after 40 years, I still notice like how he does it and how I do it. It's just so different. And so just realizing that those differences are normal. We're just different, but neither one is right or wrong. It's recognizing that we need to appreciate those differences, and it's what makes us whole.
Yeah.
So
The saying we often use, we're better together than we are apart because of those differences.
I mean, even, I'm just going to give you a quick example. Even preparing for this talk a couple months ago when we started sitting down and really thinking through it, we had to stop after the first 10 minutes because I am such a, okay, we want to talk, what are we going to talk about? Let's make our outline. And Tom just wanted to think through things and throw out ideas. And we just kind of got like, so we had to pull apart for a couple hours. And that was just recently after 40 years of marriage. So our differences still, we just have to learn how to work through those, and we'll get into that conflict stuff a little later. So one of these next, we have 2 little short videos we're going to show you that we've really appreciated from a Dave and Ann Wilson, this book called Vertical Marriage, going vertical first with the Lord before you can go horizontal with each other. And it's a 5-session study, And this is one of the ways that you can really see how men and women are so different. And so this is going to be about physical intimacy, but it's just so well said, and we really appreciated it, so we thought we'd show it to you too.
Yeah, and so the weekend that we do with them has a chart on the difference between men and women in the area of sex. I'm going to show you one part of this chart and the attitude that men look at sex this way and women this way. And again, this is generalizations, but men tend to be more physical and women relational when it comes to sex, and men tend to be compartmentalized and holistic.
And you could be flipped in your relationship, but this is a generality. So for Dave and I, this is very true for us. Dave kind of runs in compartments, and usually one compartment doesn't affect the other compartment as much. So he could be watching football, and he's totally in the zone, and then we could have a fight, and he's totally in this, and then 30 seconds later, he's done with that, and we could have sex, and he's fine, because that doesn't affect anything.
It's not really true. It isn't 30 seconds. It's more like 2 minutes, but it's pretty quick.
But women, we can't do that as much generally because we're still like processing that. And we're still processing the thing that happened before that or the day before that. And so you can talk, but I'm going to get this. I wanted to visually show you what this is like.
So yeah, I mean, if you saw Ann's tandem thing a couple weeks ago, she's the best. She teaches things visually. So she tries to illustrate this way when we do marriage
Well,
conferences.
do the Christmas lights.
Oh yeah, so it's sort of like the relational thing is for a guy in the area of sex, it's like a string of Christmas lights. If a bulb or two's out, we don't care. But a woman's like, one bulb's out, that's all done, right? Don't even talk about this, right?
So if this was Dave and I, if I would say to Dave, hey, how about tonight is business time? Huh?
Which you've never said your entire life. But you can say it tonight, honey. It's Sunday.
It's like this is the compartment of sex. And so Dave will be in that compartment. He's upstairs in bed. That's the only thing on his mind. So women.
It's like tonight.
This is what we are like as women. Here's where we're downstairs. We know that's happening upstairs, but we're like, is there enough milk in the refrigerator for tomorrow morning? What am I having for dinner tomorrow morning? And so we start, I haven't done the laundry, and what about my parents? I haven't talked to my dad in a week, and his health is bad. And Dave, like, he's going to be traveling. What are we doing with that? The boys, gosh, somebody's birthday's coming up. I need to do that. And when they're in school, like, oh gosh, I have a teacher's conference. I haven't read my Bible. I need to read my Bible, prepare for that Bible study. So here I am, and I need to pick up this. And Dave was kind of mean to me this morning. And so here we are. Here's the women. Dave has one thing in his mind, and here we are as women like this. Oh, I'm okay. I'm ready. And Dave looks at me. He's like, "Is something on your mind?" Women, do you get this? Is this not true? Yes.
Oh my gosh, the women are clapping.
Yes, because this is our life.
Men,
right?
are you hearing this?
Thing ever. And this is how we live. And so then...
So I realize all that's on our mind, and it's like, okay, it's not business time tonight.
And then women, we carry another bag. We pick that up, and it's called the guilt bag. And that's...
The differences, it's a great video that just showcases differences between us.
I feel like the guys need a little ammunition after this one. Anyways, we wanted to have a chance to give you a chance to talk with each other, and there's a statement here that I think is important. It says, there's an inherent completeness when a man and a woman marry. Our partner makes up for what we lack. I think that's important. I know I'm better because of the way she's wired, and I trust the same is for her. When we are discouraged, they are hopeful. When we are stingy, they are generous. When we're weak, they're strong. Because we are male, female, joined together, there is a wholeness. But our differences, if not understood and accepted, become our source of confusion rather than completeness.
That was from the book called Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts, which is also great for after your marriage by Les and Leslie Parrott. So go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're going to give you a chance to interact. What we're going to do today, rather than have discussion at the end, we're going to talk a little bit and then give you guys a chance to interact. And one of the things we thought would be worth talking about as a table group is what does it mean to be soulmates with somebody? And And what are the qualities? What helps you to connect at that deeper level with a spouse if you're married, and if you're not married, you can probably substitute into people that you're closest to, those deeper friendships that are beyond the acquaintance level. But talk about soulmates. What are they like? So take a few minutes, please.
Yeah. About 3 or 4 minutes. Thanks. We forgot to do that, but that's all right.
I said that earlier.
Did you? Okay. This is right here where we're supposed to be,
Ann, are we okay?
9:57.
So we're behind? Okay.
Here's water for you, Tom.
Okay.
Yes,
Your mics are still on and we can hear everything.
thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you. I know. All right. We'll come back in about 10 seconds. Okay, so we're going to go on with the 5 love languages. Hopefully you've heard of this book, or you've heard of these languages, but they are words of affirmation, which is Tom's love language, quality time, which we both kind of enjoy, gift giving or receiving gifts, acts of service, which is my love language, and physical touch. So it's so important to learn your love language, or even that of your children or grandkids for us, because we tend to love others the way we want to be loved. Because I love acts of service, like I'm a doer. Like I love my family. I loved my family by making sure the laundry was always done, meals, taking them to this activity or whatever, just doing things. Cleaning up after them. When we have a family dinner, I'm still the one that I love to just, get everything ready and then clean up. And so that's the way I was loving Tom. And really that does nothing for him, because his love language is words of affirmation. He loves when I notice something and compliment him, or, a nice birthday card when somebody's written things, or as a teacher when the students would say things. And that does nothing for me. And so I was loving him by doing all these things and expecting him to vacuum, help around the house. And our love languages were not filling each other's tanks because we weren't loving each other the way that they wanted to be loved. It's kind of the short version of how to explain this.
Here's a picture of a gas tank, and the idea of knowing each other's love language is important because you can miss each other. And you think you're showing the kind of support the other person needs, but maybe it's not the most relevant to them. So I think the thing that's helped me is, one, knowing how I need to love Racky, And unfortunately, she has acts of service, which means I'm busy more.
He's learned it very well,
Yeah.
very well.
So I got my to-do list.
And I've
yeah.
learned over all these years to love you.
And the other thing I think that's important too is know your spouses, but also help them to know you. And some of it, you need to advocate for yourself, and I would encourage you, especially with, I'll speak to you and your husbands. Generally, women are very good at inferences, and they pick up cues. Us, not so much. Sometimes you need to just let us know and be clear and help us know how to love you better, and you might be surprised how they can step up. I'll say one last thing too on this, on the love tank. I love the picture. I think it's very relevant, but I would also say at the deepest level, don't look to your mate to fill the deepest level. I think that space is kind of reserved for God and your relationship vertically. There's only certain things God's designed to do, and there's other things your mate is designed to do.
So we're going to give you a chance to table talk again because this is such a fun area. So think about what do you think is your love language, and we've put them up there so you can see them again. And maybe even talk about your husband's or some of your children's. At the very end, we have a link that you can actually go online and fill out the little form and see what your love languages really are. So another 3 or 4 minutes, table time. Go ahead. What do you think is your love language? Okay, just a few more seconds here. This has been fun just to see your conversations. Just out of curiosity, how many of you, just by a quick show of hands, how many of you have done the 5 love languages or heard about them before? Perfect, okay. Good. Well, then it's new to some of you. This really could be one of the, if it's new to you, this would be one of, I think, a really great thing for your marriage and your family, to check into that a little bit more too. So the next section is on intimacy. And there's a quote here that I think it's on your handouts too. It says, marriage is about intimacy, a word often explained as into me see. And when I saw that, I just thought, oh, this is such a good way to talk about intimacy, just really being known by someone else, being your true self. Meaning letting your spouse see all of you, the good and not so good parts. It's about opening up to each other without shame. What you really want is someone who knows your worst flaws, but chooses to love you regardless. I mean, seriously, that's such a gift, such a gift. Practice vulnerability. Start being more open with your spouse about the little things, because it's really those little things that are the foundation for the big things later on. Be deliberate about building trust. I'm sorry, I know I did something wrong here.
While you're getting that fixed, I'll add a thought here. Again, for guys, sometimes we're not as good at this as the ladies are. Find a way to create good conversation spaces. And sometimes for men, you don't even need to talk a lot. You just hang out. We're more side-by-side people. We're,
Shoulder to shoulder.
You gals never seem to run out of things to say. It's amazing. But I will say we can use a little boost. And one practical little technique we used at our table time during the day when we were all busy with school and work and kids, your connection time is limited. But we found a simple device. Maybe this might help you on a practical thing. We call it high-low. And every day, or when we could, we would say, okay, what's your high-low? And the idea was you look back on your day and you tried to find a high point. And by the way, this works well with kids who always just tell you, how was school? It's fine, They'll tell you a story about something that was important that day.
A friendship.
And then you share a low, something that was difficult, that didn't go so well. And that's helpful. And if you don't have a low, you can do 2 highs. But you can't do 2 lows. That's how the rules go.
Yeah. Anyway, that's a great little thing. Intimacy has a best friend or a soulmate quality about it. We've used those words a lot, soulmates, but when you really think about the soul of a person, to be able to share that and open up and have that relationship with another person, it is a true gift. We all want someone who knows us better than anyone else and will still accept us. Because Tom really is the person that I can be myself with. It's hard, I know, especially in the younger years when we had younger children. How can I say this? Like, he really saw me at my worst spot in the way that I would talk to him a lot. And he would say, you would never, why are you talking to me like that? You would never talk to any of your friends the way that you just said that to me. And so I really had to learn, and I'm still learning, even though you are my best friend and you know me better than anyone else and will accept me, it's kind of that, it's a very balancing line, because I can just talk to him the way that I feel like it, or that he sees me at my worst, and I wouldn't talk to anyone else the way that I talk to him, but yet that's not helping him, it's not building that trust. And so there is a balance there of what it means to be your best friend. We want someone who holds nothing back from us, someone who trusts us with personal secrets, and it's someone that does fill our heart's deepest longings with closeness and acceptance. but it does take vulnerability. So, table talk again. Vulnerability can be both scary and safe, both ways. Why is building trust so important in relationships? Hopefully with your husband, it can be with your best friend. What are little things that you can do to build that trust with each other? So we'll just take about 3 or 4 minutes again, and you guys can tackle this one, all right? All righty. Another few seconds, you can wrap up your talking. Okay.
Okay. It's fun to just sit here and watch the interaction. I can tell your table groups have a lot of history. Yeah, you just a buzz. Okay, the next resource we look gleaning from comes from the book Saving Your Marriage Before You Start. It's by Les and Leslie Parrott. They're big instructors up at Seattle Pacific.
Can I say something for a second? I think on your handouts, there is just 2 triangles, this one and the one coming up. There's going to be more triangles in between that, but there were so many that we wanted to talk about, so you can just take notes around. You'll see what I mean.
Okay.
Sorry.
And what this guy found out, his research is from Robert Sternberg. He's a Yale University professor. Is they asked the question, what is love? What are the components that make us feel in love? What are the elements? And it boiled down to 3 areas in his study, and they were intimacy, commitment, and passion. And it's pictured in the triangle, and we like it because the triangle's in perfect balance. And where this is helpful is as you go through life, a lot of times you feel like your relationship's a little out of balance. And so maybe this might help you understand what piece might be missing. So one of the sides would be the intimacy side. Racky talked a little bit about that. It's the emotional side of love. It's knowing the real person. It's the grace-filled space that we like. The second would be passion. That, of course, is the biological side of romance, physical attraction. That piece is an important part of the triangle. And then the third is commitment. Commitment is the willful side. It's until death do us part. It's the part that says, of all the people in the world, I chose her, and I'm not going anywhere. And it's that piece. So those are the 3 sides. In perfect balance, it's wonderful. But
it's not always in perfect balance.
I'm fine.
Yeah. And there are seasons and stages of your love life through your marriage, and we're in a different season of love now than you all are, because we remember that busy time when we were in your season, and it gets better. It gets better. So the romantic love is what they call when you still have passion and intimacy, but you're missing commitment. And romantic love is physical attraction mixed with a deep sense of caring, but you're missing the security of the commitment, part of that triangle. So one of the ways that Tom and I have found, a couple of the ways that we found to cultivate commitment, we really try to find time for each other. Talking is always, really, that's an important part of all of these, but one of the cheap, easy ways we used to do when we were your age was just walking. And if you have one that can go in a stroller or a couple that you need to push with you, we would just head down to the park, down to a coffee shop, and we walked many, many hours and talked together. Especially when we were facing struggles or things just weren't right, just walking and talking really helped a lot. Happiness in marriage has nothing to do with luck. Like, this didn't just happen to us. It's a choice of your will. It's putting in the time and the work to achieve that happiness, determining to stay together, honoring each other's vows that you made. So that's romantic love.
The second way we can get off balance, he calls foolish love. And this is when you have passion and commitment without the stabilizing element of intimate knowledge. And so, again, when you feel like that part is missing, you start to ask yourself, well, what are some pragmatic things we can do to reconnect on this side? And we have found things like, finding time to spend time together, especially when we had a lot of the kids. It seemed to always be about the kids, Taco Bell, sporting events, you're running. Mm-hmm. And so it may not always be a lot of time, but you look for the small moments when you can connect and find ways to do that. I would say for us too, the other way it creates a lot of intimacy is we share a deep faith together. So our times of prayer are important. sharing that part of our lives is really helpful for us.
I'm going to add to that because at the end of this, we're going to give you a little link from Vertical Marriage. It's a 30-day prayer guide. And for busy families, busy seasons of life like you guys are in, we still have done it the last couple of years. It's a 30-day thing, and it's perfect. It literally takes 3-4 minutes, a verse, a prayer, and a little thought for the day. And it was a great thing. So mark that down when I get to that, because that's a great way to build intimacy. The next one is called companionable love. Companionable love.
Don't
Sorry.
hurt yourself. Honey.
You have intimacy and you have commitment, but you're missing the passion. And this is another season of love where you just feel like you have the intimacy, you knowing each other, you're committed, but you just feel like you're just in this, the passion is fading for a while, and you're just in this lovely long-term friendship because you're missing that passion piece, which is, it's fine. It's just one of the seasons of love, but you do want to keep the passion alive in these busy seasons too, when possible. So one of the ways that we did was, again, just making time for each other after the kids were in bed, sometimes in the evening, just connecting for 10 or 15 minutes, sitting down together. And not when we didn't even have cell phones and technology, that kind of stuff, but just putting that away and just being alone together. A little bit from the video that you saw, unpacking some suitcases, asking your spouse, when you share this illustration, or try to share what this illustration was about, asking him to say, hey, what are some suitcases I can help you with? What bag can I take off your shoulder in this season of your life? Just talking. And then meaningful touch, non-sexual, just meaningful touch. We're kind of a huggy family, but that was good. So that was companionable love.
So, in a perfect world, get all three. They call it consummate love. I like the statement down below this. It says, every successful marriage is a result of two people working diligently and skillfully to cultivate their love. And that's kind of the theme today, is there's things you can do to really cultivate your marriage. When combined, passion, intimacy, and commitment, they're able to grow to a flourishing, healthy marriage. How to make love last a lifetime.
And it's nice to know that it looks pretty when it's all equally balanced, but it doesn't always work like that. So, don't have a guilt trip about it. But when you do have all three of those, they're going to be pretty well represented. But then there's another triangle that we added on your handout that is just as important.
I think this triangle kind of speaks for itself. We talked a little bit about there are certain spaces in our heart and our lives that I don't think our spouses are designed to fill. Somebody else belongs there. And so the triangle has the wife and the husband. As they get closer to God, they should be getting closer to each other. And I think that's a good picture. How do you cultivate that in your spouse? And I think it's important, since the husbands aren't here, love them where they're at. I don't know where they are in the continuum. Some of you may have very spiritual, alive husbands,
Leaders.
and some of you may have just fledglings, just beginning, and that love and support is really important. But as you cultivate that in each other's lives, it's a beautiful thing, and really helps marriage.
Yeah, and there's three things. Just think of daily, weekly, and yearly was what we kind of teach other couples to. Daily, just pray together. And if you're not able to pray together yet, just have a spiritual conversation or read a Bible verse together. But prayer together, even like on this link that we share later, the Vertical Marriage 30-day devotional prayer guide, even if it's just a few lines, God help us, we need your help. Thank you for this child, or whatever. Just a few minutes praying together. Weekly, go on a date. It doesn't have to cost money. Like we said, a lot of ours were just walking and talking together. And then yearly try to get away together. A weekend to remember by Family Life is a great marriage getaway. We're going to put a plug in for that. If you like, when we lived overseas for those 4 years, we had to trade. We didn't have relatives, so we had to trade with other families that we grew to trust and love. And even if it's for an overnight every year, just a time for just the two of you. So daily pray together or do a spiritual reading. Weekly, have a date time. And then yearly, just get away together for a while. Those are some good.
Yeah. I think another part of this triangle is forgiveness, because we hurt each other. And how do you restore? Forgiveness is a big part of, I think, this triangle. Interesting statistic, couples who pray together and tend to be happier, more romantic, and even enjoy a more satisfying sex life together. That might motivate your guys to pray. Just saying. Okay.
But recognize that really only God can fill those deepest needs and deepest desires. And we really don't want to look to our mates to fill those deepest needs that only God can. So now it's your turn again. Table talk. We have a few more minutes. We put both triangles up there for you to think about, so you can talk about either what's missing on the one or how you're getting closer to God and your husband. What helps you find more of a balanced relationship with your soulmate? So take another 3 or 4 minutes and have fun. We're enjoying listening to you. Sorry, we'd come down and listen, but it seems kind of daunting, so enjoy. Okay, just another half a minute or so. Thank you, ladies. So a thumbs up. Is some of this connecting? Is some of this making sense? Cool. Good. Um, oh, no, this happens when you get to my age. There was something I meant to.
Stretch.
Oh, yeah, stretch. That's what it was. Thank you. I'm glad I mentioned it to him at the beginning of the questions because I forgot already.
It's a handy part of being one. Takes both
So
brains
we
to
won't
remember.
won't really have a break yet, but if you want to stretch your legs or arms or whatever, please
Get up,
do, because
yeah.
I know we've gotten through 2 sections. We're done with study your mate and intimacy. Now we're getting on to something that we're going to have to use our notes a little bit more for, because this is our hard area. Communication, conflict resolution. It's always been the biggie for us, probably because we're so different in our styles. And when we work with couples, this is always one that comes up too. So we put this picture up because we do love to kayak, and probably for us 2 kayaks, but 2 singles would have been better, but we have a tandem because our daughter sold it to us for a good deal. And so, but this is a good example of our communication style, shall I say.
Now, I was going to describe the kayak as a perfect example of how well we get along, honey.
Yeah, right, oneness.
The
Go ahead.
mountain in the background,
Yeah.
the calm water.
Uh-huh.
It's a beautiful thing. I will say, being 40 years in, it's worth it. It really is. To have a soulmate who gets to know you at this level, it's a wonderful thing. Anyways, communication, I like the quote at the bottom. One of the most important skills you can learn is how to talk so your mate will listen, and how to listen so your mate will talk. It's a good one. So we're going to talk about a few of the rules of communication that have been helpful to us and might be helpful for you.
By the way, one of the best time to work on communication is when things are going well. Because when you're at a standstill or when things are really, when you're not connecting, that's not the best time to work on things. So, sorry, I added that.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's your turn.
Oh, me.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Remember, there are not really right or wrong styles. There's just, it's just different. You simply have different styles. One of the first things that I'm still learning is making I statements and not you. And you probably have learned this like in some of your other communication classes or school classes or things. But I gives information and feelings. Like, I really wish we went out more. And it doesn't put, you're just expressing yourself. Not like, you never take me anywhere. That is giving blame and accusing, criticizing. And so I and you statements is just a very simple one to try to flip-flop when you're talking with your mate.
Next one is practice reflective listening. When somebody's telling you something, your mission is to understand them. Doesn't require you to agree, but you try to hear what they're really saying. Sometimes you can check back in and say, this is what I'm hearing, am I getting you right? You can even give it a percentage. And they might say, yeah, you're 70% right. And I say, well, then keep talking. Help me get better what it is that you're trying to say. I would say along with this too is problem solving versus just listening. Typically the guy is more of a problem solver and the girl's a better listener. In our relationship, it's opposite. So I've learned if I want to share something with her, I'll give her a heads up and I'll tell her, I just want you to listen on this one, because
Don't need to
otherwise
solve it.
I'll be halfway through and she'll already tell me the solution to the problem. And I'm not ready for that yet. So sometimes you have
hard,
to train.
when you're wired to listen, to want to fix something, you're really not listening to listen. You're just wanting to, and you mean it in a good way. We're all good-willed people, but you're not really listening. That's why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth.
Yeah. It's true. I'm listening, honey.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say? Uh, I would say at best, I think it's important to give both sides of the table a chance to be understood. And sometimes in a friendship or relationship, one's a high talker and one's a low talker. Or one person's very skilled at using words and saying what they're thinking, and the other not so good. They're clumsy. And so if particularly sometimes the guys are the clumsy one, develop skills in how to bring that person out. Learn to listen. So they'll want to talk. Okay, we've talked about understanding the differences between men and women. Again, not right or wrong. You're just different. You see the world differently.
But you do, I want to add though, for cheering for, I'm thinking of men, just remembering to speak life to him and desire him. And for women to take the need we have is just talking together, you know, and having that truth leadership, a spiritual leader, tying touch together.
There's a fun little saying, the best way to avoid stepping on your mate's toes is to put yourself in their shoes.
Oh, did we not, is the technology one coming next?
Yeah.
Okay. Apologize, this is mine, because I have to apologize, I apologize more. I have a need to apologize more than Tom
Okay,
does.
let me explain this.
No, I'm saying, I'm owning up.
Yeah, no, what I'm saying is, it's harder for her to say, I'm sorry. Where I mess up a lot, I'm pretty good at it, okay,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, it's just personality type, how I've learned over the years just to apologize and ask forgiveness.
It's healing.
Yeah, it is healing.
it's healing.
Yeah, it is healing. And then this is one that we have not had to deal with our whole married life, but just, you know, it's just discouraging when you go like to a restaurant and you see a husband and wife or even kids, when kids are on iPads, husbands and wives are on their phone, and we're entering such a different world of technology that just shut it down, you know, shut it down for a while when you're with your husband or mate or friends or kids, just to honor them with your time and your total presence. I think that's a good word for building successful communication.
The next one, communicate through touch.
Yep, and
And-
non-sexual, it doesn't have
Yeah.
to be non-sexual, but just touch. Because tell about the
Oh, the nerve endings.
the nerve endings.
Yeah, that we apparently have millions of these touch receptors on our skin. Use them.
Because it sends good messages to your brain.
It does. And two, again, you know your spouse, sometimes you don't always have to talk a lot. Sometimes plop yourself and sit right next to us and do side by side, or if you're out, if he likes to do something, just spend a little time shoulder to shoulder with them.
Go out in the garage every once in a while, yeah.
Yeah.
Good. So those are just some basic rules. This picture is Les and Leslie, the authors of a lot of the books, Saving Your Marriage, and there's another one we use called I Love You More. It's for helping relationships that are in little potholes. Again, remember, complaints are using the I. You can complain, it's just that you don't want to criticize using the you. So express yourself and your feelings starting with I statements and not accusing your husband using the you ones. And we'll see a video about that later too.
And having disagreements is very normal. That's not a
Arguments.
problem. It's not how you get into arguments, but it's how you get out of them. That's important. And I would say it doesn't require you to agree. But it's very respectful when you make an effort to understand the spouse.
Yep, again, realizing no right or wrongs, just different. Good. So conflict is normal and natural. It's how you deal with it. And so we're going to go over the 4 styles of conflict. And hopefully you'll find yourself in one of these styles. There is a man at the University of Washington. You probably have heard about him in some of the other books or studies you've done. His name is Dr. John Gottman. And he and his team of researchers have worked a lot with communication and conflict and couples. And they've gotten to the point scientifically where 95% of the time they can tell if a relationship is going to be successful or is going to deteriorate. And just in the way that the couples talk to each other and handle conflict. And so there are 4 saboteurs or hindrances to effective conflict resolution: criticism and contempt, which we've talked a little bit about in our communication, and we'll show you a little video in a minute. And then just getting defensive and stonewalling, just shutting down, just zipping up. So try to avoid criticizing and not speaking death, not speaking life to your husband, getting too defensive, or just shutting up. So these are the 4 styles of conflict.
Okay, and the first 3 aren't necessarily the best ones.
Which
But
would be me.
It deals with knowing how we're wired. And so some people, when you go to conflict, they're wired to win. And for them, they want to prove that they're right. It's kind of like going to a court of law. They bring out the evidence, and they go to win the fight. And unfortunately, the other person sometimes feels like they lose.
Unfortunately, that would be me.
I'm not going to argue with that one. And what's important, I think, is helpful for us is, again, knowing each other well. I know that about her. And I can deal with that better. She knows that about herself. So
I've learned
she
that,
can help.
yep.
You know what I'm saying? So it's helpful. Okay, number 2 is yield. That
This
would
is
be...
him. That's
true.
you.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. And we like to keep peace at all cost. And so
They give in. He
whatever
just
you say,
Gives in, yeah.
you know, and so you give in, which can produce peace, but sometimes it's artificial. And for me, if I do it too often, things build up, and then it's time. So again, this is important to know about myself, because I don't want to be that way all the time. I want to learn to enter into an argument and to stay there. Third one is withdraw. A lot of men do this when we have a fight. We pull back, shut up, and, you know, kind of go off because we just can't deal with it. So we leave. So you can see that, again, it's knowing your spouse, knowing yourself, knowing your kind of go-to, and you're going to have a little chance to talk about these 3 because ultimately we want to be the 4th one, is what are the skills involved to resolve conflict and to be able to come together and have difficult conversations well.
To find the solution,
Yeah.
which is what we've grown into.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. Dave and Ann Wilson, the ones that you saw in the first video, these are their 4 steps for resolving conflict. And we wrote down a Bible verse for each of them. I can't remember if we put this on the handouts or not. We did. Oh, perfect. Okay, great. So the first one, shut up and listen, James 1:19. That's kind of one that I need to still work on. And the Bible verse is, understand, my dear brothers and sisters, you must all be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. One of our table questions later is going to be with this verse as well. A lot of times there's a story behind the story, and you're just seeing the argument part or the conflict. And so we need to listen for what the real source of our disagreement is, because it might be something that happened a while ago, or you might be feeling a certain way. And so we just have to, again, one mouth, 2 ears, shut up and listen.
I might say a practical...
Do you have to click those things?
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
I do.
There you go.
Yeah.
Had to have it right.
One other thing that, since I'm the only guy in the room, this is really dangerous to say, but I'm going to say it. Monthly cycles.
We had
Okay.
3 daughters. 3 daughters.
Clue us in, ladies, because we don't get it. But we feel, I'll tell you, the opposite side is sometimes, and I'm generalizing, I don't know how this impacts you, okay? I can imagine, but a lot of times when you're in that cycle, the world isn't as pretty. And husbands, this husband sometimes feels like a bit of a punching bag. And what we can feel like is we feel very responsible for your happiness. And we feel it's our fault. And so I guess I say that sometimes if you cue your husband in, just say it is that time of the month, be patient. Mm-hmm. And that's just all I need. Just like, okay. And so I'm a little tougher. I don't take everything as personal. So anyways, that's a sidebar. Soft answer is the next one, and that comes from Proverbs. A gentle answer deflects anger, but harsh words make tempers flare. And that, I think, really helps keep arguments sounding more like conversations rather than a battle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Seek and grant forgiveness. I've mentioned that a little bit. This is the verse on this one, sorry. Instead, be kind to each other, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, just as God through Christ has forgiven you. And this has been one of those things I've just had to learn, just to ask for forgiveness and apologize. And Tom's always very quick to forgive. But it does so much for that healing part of your relationship. And then surrender.
And the last one is surrender to Jesus. And again, I don't know where the spiritual level is in your marriage. If it's there, it's very helpful to tap into it. Because when we come together, and sometimes it's not right away, when you're upset, we need a little time. But we circle back around, we tend to sit close, we kind of revisit, and we pray. Mm-hmm. And it's a very powerful moment, and it's very healing. But I think it can be found in different ways, too. Even for someone that's not quite at that space, you can find pathways for that.
So we're going to take this will be a shorter table talk, but what is your tendency to turn to when you argue out of those 4? And could you glean to do something differently? Okay, so we'll just do 2 or 3 minutes on this one.
Just don't fight about it, okay?
All right. So the last part of this communication section is from Love and Respect. And this is a great book. It's a very lengthy book and a deep book, so we don't use it as much in one-on-one work or with couples, but it has some great things. And one of the things that I think is on your handout is the crazy cycle and the energizing cycle. So we're going to talk about those for a minute.
The key verse that goes with, this guy's name is Emerson Eggerichs. It's called Love and Respect, and it deals with something Racky talked about. Sometimes you're arguing about one thing, but the issue's not that really. It's something deeper. Okay, it's that thing. He loves this verse, Ephesians 5:33. Each man must love his wife as he loves himself. And Emerson says that one of the core needs of women is this need to be loved and to be cherished. So that is a core need for women. And my wife must respect her husband. And one of the core needs for us men is the need for respect. So the crazy cycle sometimes is a good picture of why relationships get in this tailspin of hurt. And so without love from your husband, she'll react, and without the respect, he'll react.
From her.
And so without meeting that core need, sometimes you get on the crazy cycle. And so if you've been on it, you know it. And you usually feel it, and things are off, and there's usually hurt involved.
So we're going to play this next video, and really the first couple times, still even, I'm kind of heart pricked because I would just get teary because this used to be the way that I would choose to speak to Tom instead of speaking life to him. And it's just a good reminder of when we're on the crazy cycle, what can happen. This is Dave and Annie.
Yeah.
We really come back with contempt. So marriage expert John Gottman says this about contempt. He says, contempt is the single best predictor of relationship breakdowns. Listen to this. Contempt is an attitude of superiority, speaking down to your partner through name-calling or direct insults. Ever been there? Yeah, he says, the critic diagnoses the problem as a defect in their spouse and sees the relationship in terms of what's missing instead of focusing on the positive things about their spouse and their relationship.
Okay, I'm just gonna fess up here. This was totally me and I was like this a majority of the time in our relationship. Honestly, I did it all the time. And let me illustrate it like this. Let's say we have our relationship represented as plants. And if this plant is like, these are men, and I'm looking for my husband. And so I'm like, oh yeah, this one's really tall.
He's tall.
Yeah,
Looks
this
good.
one's really tall. And this one has lots of hair.
Overrated. Overrated.
But I look at this and I'm like, this is the one. Of all the men in the world, I choose you. You are the one. You're the man. You're amazing. You're getting all this positive energy and focus. I see all these wonderful things. But then we're married a while, and suddenly we notice some things, right? Like, whoa, I didn't notice before, but you have this brown leaf. You know, what is that? Oh, I know what that is. You used to be so romantic. You would wine and dine. We'd go out to dinner. And now all you want to do is have sex. I'm cutting that off. Like, we don't need that. And what's this one? Oh my gosh, yes, this one. Remember when you used to talk all the time after work and you would sit and tell me all about your day? Now you come home, you know what you do? You just watch ESPN all day long. What's that? And then we're like, oh my gosh, this plant has so many brown leaves, and it's my job to fix you because something's wrong with you. And so then we have to find something better. And this is it, right? Because we sit there like, oh my gosh, you don't talk, you don't listen, you don't lead, you don't pray, you don't spend time with the boys, you don't do all these things. Meet my needs. And then we're like, oh, what has happened? And you know what we do then? We're like, why can't you be more like them? And you guys, we cut we destroy, we critique, and all of a sudden, this spouse, this beautiful spouse we married, is a stump of the person they used to be. There's nothing left, and we don't realize that this is what we have done.
And here's the truth. It isn't just wives doing this to husbands. We do it to our wives as well. It's this whole, it's contempt. It's
Yes.
like all we can see are brown leaves. All we do is critique, and we sort of destroy the man or the woman they once were.
And we think we're amazing, but we continually compare our spouse to someone else, and that's what social media does.
It's good. It's good. Convicting, but it's just good to realize. So the answer is the energizing cycle. And there's another pastor that you might have heard of from before. His name is Paul Tripp. And he says it's not the big things or the big events in our marriage, in our relationship, but it's the small, little, daily, mundane, I love the word mundane moments in our days that make up our marriage and our relationship. So it's nothing big. It's just all the little things that we do for each other and with each other. So it takes a lot of work to stay on the re-energizing cycle, but you can see here that his love motivates her respect. And when she's feeling loved, her respect motivates, she's willing to love him, and then that motivates his love, and it's kind of the energizing cycle. And it's a good place to be, but it takes a lot of work to stay there. Then there's something even past this called the rewarding cycle, the rewarded cycle, and it's total unconditional love. And there's one quote that I love that says, "What is on God's heart is clearly spelled out in Scripture, that the husband and wife be one. When blue blends with pink," remember the blue and pink sunglasses and hearing aids, "it becomes purple. And that purple is God's color, a royal color, because we are sons and daughters of the King." So, crazy cycle to energizing cycle to rewarded cycle. So, is this our last table talk? Yeah, I think this is our last table talk. Let's just take a few minutes again. How are we doing on time here?
I think
Are we okay? Well,
actually we're not.
yeah, actually we're not.
Should we skip this one?
Yeah, this one, we'll skip this one. This is James 1:19, the quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Describe the importance of each one as it pertains to your relationship. But we'll just kind of go over that one. It's a good one.
Fly over.
Yep. Good. So, Thomas, you are on for our last closing quote here.
Okay, as a wrap-up, our focus today was gleaning, and the idea that if you want a good marriage, you invest in it. And you apply some things in a steady, caring way. It requires you to study your mate to know what they're like. And I think it requires you to also advocate for yourself. Help your husbands or your mate know more about you and how they can meet your needs. This quote says, "Living happily ever after only works when you make it work. When you take the raw materials of marriage, the good and the bad that you've brought together as persons to design, create, and build a lasting bond. The result is an enduring and meaningful sense of genuine fulfillment." And one of the things that make us good mentors, I think, is our marriage is not perfect. And it's not been particularly easy. We're not the Hallmark movie couple. Nobody is. I hate to be a spoiler. That we worked at it. And we've worked hard at it. And we've been rewarded with becoming soulmates and having a great marriage. So that's been really great.
But there are a lot of things like love that needs to be learned again and again and again. And I'm a great example of that, just really learning and relearning and keeping at it. So, So the last two.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about some places you could go. If you want to have a time to develop your relationship, one of the things we do, we host different kind of marriage events. We like family life. One is called Love Like You Mean It. It actually, we will have a couple opportunities if you want to join us. There'll be a class here Sunday, starting this Sunday morning. We'll be meeting in room S
107.
107. And this
During
is
the first service.
and it's 9 o'clock, and we chose that one for couples like yourself that might have children. So the child care challenge can be met. Your kids can be in class. You can come to
Or
class.
there's also a Zoom option that night, because some couples have found when their kids are quiet and down for the night, we meet between 8 and 8:45 doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So that starts Sunday night
Yeah,
too.
and this is based on 1 Corinthians 13. I like it a lot because it talks about, like, love. 1 week might be on love is patient, and then your whole week you're talking with your spouse about how can we bring that to our relationship. There's a short video and then table group discussions, really meaningful.
And then the next one is vertical marriage, the one that we've been talking with Dave and Ann, the ones that are on the screen. We've offered that all last year. We're going to offer it one more time. Another couple's going to do it for us in April or May. That's 5 weeks. And what I wanted to point out, you can write, we didn't get it on the handout, is that familylife.com/govertical. That's where you can just sign up for that little devotional link. And it's just a little 4 or 5 minute verse, thought, and prayer together. And it's really good. The other thing I wanted to mention, we talked a lot about family life. This is probably 30 years going, we still get the Focus on the Family magazine. It's free every month, and they always have wonderful couples, marriage, and parenting relationship articles and ideas in here. And it's really seasonal. It's fun with different things to do with your kids and as a family. And I'm always giving this to my daughter, like, oh, you need to do this with the boys, we need to do this. And so Focus on the Family free magazine every month is great too. You can probably get that from their website. Anyway, we hope you've found a few seeds to glean from us. And we really encourage you. This is such a busy season for you. Your kids are important, but your husband, that marriage relationship is even more important. That's your number one thing right now. So thank you for asking us. We've really enjoyed this time. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you guys for your transparency and wisdom. And I just find it so encouraging how long you've been married and how hard you've worked at it. Intentionality, I guess. So it's hard to find that time when you have littles, but this was really encouraging. And we went through the vertical marriage, my husband and I did. It was great, you guys.
Good.
It's 5 weeks, and it's hilarious. You saw Dave and Ann. So we are going to break for 10 minutes and then come back to a raffle. And during that time, text in your questions, and we'll do Q&A with
Thank
Tom and
you.
Racky.
Good. Thanks. Stretch.